Hi guys, this is Tech Howdy. I welcome you to another video tutorial where we are building this CMS application using ASP.NET Core 3 and Angular 10. In the last video tutorial, I showed you guys how we can implement the profile view in our application where the user can view their profile and also update their profile. We are going to continue working on the profile view. So in this video tutorial, I will implement the onSubmit method that will be called when the user submits their profile form. In the last part of the previous video tutorial, I showed you the demo that how when the user submits the form, we ask the user for the password. Once the user enters the correct password, then only we should update the user's profile. Therefore, in the onSubmit method, first thing that we are going to do is we are going to check if the submitted form is valid. And how would we know if the form is valid? Our form is basically part of the form group, and the form group contains all the form controls. In the method here that we have implemented, where we have initialized the form controls, we have added validators. Now validators, as you know, their job is to make sure that the specific inputs are valid. If they are not valid for some reason, like the user's email is not provided or the user's email is invalid, then it will generate an error and return it back to the form group. So this is how the form group will know if that specific control in that form group has an error, and if any one of the form control in the form group has an error, then it will mark the form as invalid. Therefore, the update profile form, we will call the valid property on it, which is of type boolean. It will provide us this response as true or false, and if the form is valid, we will process this particular logic over here, where first we will show the loading spinner by setting the isProfileLoaded property to false. Then we will assign the values of the form control to user details object, and we will set the country, shipping country, and gender. Here for the gender, if the user has not specified or selected their gender, I have set it to prefer not to say value and remove the null option. Next thing, I'm going to fire the sweet alert pop-up and ask the user to provide their password. If the user has provided the password, and then we will go ahead and call the update profile method from the account service. You see this red line over here because we have not yet implemented the update profile method, but we will soon implement it in the account service. Here, when we receive a response after subscribing to the result of the update profile method, we will display a toast message to our user, and depending on the message we receive, we will clear the cache. That's because the user's profile is updated, so we need to clear the cache because our cache contains the old details of the users. Then we will reload the user's details once again, or user profile details once again, and then we will set the spinner to disappear by setting the isProfileLoaded value to true. In the other case over here, we want to make sure that the profile loaded is always set to true so that it disappears from our screen. The loading spinner disappears from the screen. So we have made sure that the profile loaded value is set to true. Next thing that we want to do is if the form is not valid. If the form is not valid, we are going to display the errors to our users. Now, sometimes in our application, we need to change how the error description appears on the screen. For example, if I go back to the registration form, here you will see if I touch the username, I see the following error due to reactive programming, and it specifies that username is required. Username is basically the name of the form control that I have specified in my registration form. Now think about it like this. If the user touches the is term accepted checkbox and sees an error which says is term accepted is required, something like this on the screen, this will not make sense to the user. So we need to make a descriptive uh, error description shown on the screen. For that reason, whenever we have a form control whose name is term accepted and it has the following error which is required, we will make sure we change the error description to something like this: accept acceptance of term is required instead of is terms accepted is required, which makes more sense. So in your form, if there are any other controls whose error description you want to change and set a custom error description, you could do it like this. Or else, if we don't want to change the error description for other controls, then we will leave it to the default error description. Finally, what we will do on the controls, we will mark them as touched so that the focus is set on that specific control on our form. Here I'm going to log the console, log the errors on the console so that I can debug it, but you can remove this particular line or you can comment it once you're deploying your code to production. Once we have all the errors, we will show it to our users in the error model, and we have already implemented this method in the last video tutorial. So this should be it for our onSubmit method. Now the next thing that we want to do is create the update profile method in our account service so we can get rid of this error. We will save this file and go to the account service, and here we will implement the update profile method so that it can return a response to the user profile and the response can be displayed to our users. Now here we have implemented the update profile method. First thing that we will do is add the endpoint, that is the update profile method endpoint. We have created an object over here. The next thing that we want to do is in the update profile method, we are going to create a form data object. Now form data is part of HTML5 browsers, and here you can see on MD and web docs that how form data works. We can use it to construct forms in our application and send these forms over HTTP request. Here I'm going to set the encoding type as multipart form data, which I have done here. That's because I need to attach files as well when I'm making the HTTP request, because the user might want to update their profile picture and the form might contain some files. Therefore, I have added this encoding type over here. Next thing that I want to do is in the HTTP params, I have set the username, and finally I have created the form using the key value pair, and from the user details that I'm going to be receiving when this method is called. So in the user profile component.ts and the onSubmit method, when the update profile method is called, we are passing the user details, which contains all the values of our form, that the form has been submitted by the user. These values, we are going to save them as key value pair and construct our form. And the method to add these values to our form data, you can see that the method is provided over here, which is form data.append. So it will append a new value onto the existing key inside a form data object, or adds the key if the key does not exist. So we will use this append method to add a key value pair in this form data object. Next thing that we want to do, make a HTTP request using our HTTP object. The method type will be post. In our backend code in the profile controller, the method type is post. I have added the auto validate anti-forgery token attribute over here so that we will make sure that the request is coming in from our application. Therefore, I have attached the access RF token over here from the cookie, and then I have specified the params, which is the username that we want to update for these profile details for, and then I have made the request. Once we receive the result, we will map the result, we will clear the existing cache and return the result to the user profile.component.ts. Here, as I mentioned, when we receive the result, we are going to display a toast message, clear the cache and load the user's profile once again. So that should be it for this update profile method. We don't need to do anything else over here. So I'm going to save this. Now, next thing that we would want to do is in the user profile.html, I'm going to remove this demo code that I have over here and replace it with the code that I have already uh, written for the form, for our user profile form. So once again, we are not going to teach you HTML code in this video tutorial series. You should be knowing HTML, and if you don't know HTML, I recommend you to take up the basic HTML course. So here I'm going to paste the entire form that I have created using HTML and Bootstrap, and added some string interpolation of Angular objects, but I'll go through it roughly so that you guys can understand what exactly is being used in the HTML form. So here I have implemented the HTML code that we need. First thing, I have set the loading template which will load the spinner based on the isProfile loaded object that we have created in our component. So the spinner will be hidden and shown based on the value of that specific object. Next thing over here, if profile is loaded is false, then we will go ahead and if profile is loaded is true, which means that the profile is loaded, we'll go ahead and show our form, else we will show the loading template that we have over here. Here in the form we have created the different form controls, and we have specified the form controls using the form control name attribute. Here I'm seeing a form group implemented, attribute implemented called as form group, where we are specifying the name of the form group object that we have created. And when the form is submitted, we are going to call the ng submit event, and the method that we are going to process or fire off is the onSubmit method. Here if you hover over this object, you will see an error says can't bind to form group since it's not a known property. That's because our user module is separate from our app module. We are lazy loading this user module. Therefore, we need to implement the forms module in the user module as well. Here we have not implemented the forms module. Therefore, the HTML file here does not know what is this form group, and it's part of the form module, and we have the reactive programming implemented, so it's part of the reactive form module. So we need to implement these two modules over here so that we can get rid of the error that we are seeing on our HTML file. Let's go ahead and add this. So here I have implemented the form module and reactive module. I've added it to the imports array and added the import statement. I'll save this here. And now if I go back to our HTML file, I shouldn't see the error, because now the HTML knows that, or the Angular attributes know that the form module has all the form group classes that it requires for this form group. So now the next thing that I would do is go ahead and display the form to the users, and I have specified the errors, how I'm going to display the errors in the error div over here. So it's pretty much the standard form that I've created using the Angular objects, and also have done the same with the registration form as well. And once this form is submitted, then the user will see the loading spinner, and once they see the loading spinner, the process will be going on in the background, and once the process is finished, we will hide the spinner. So here at the bottom of this HTML file, you will see the model, the Bootstrap model that we are using to display all the errors to our users. And if we go to the component file over here, we scroll down, we will have this show error model method that will load this model based on the model's ID. So here is the ID of that model. So that's all we have in this HTML file over here. As I have shown you, go through it in a detail, in step by step, to understand how things are implemented, because I'm not going to explain it in detail, as it's going to take a while, and we have done that in registration as well as in the login form, and there are a lot of controls here. To go through each and every control, we would take a lot of time, so that's why I recommend you to go through it slowly and understand the code. So here we have implemented the HTML component for our component. Let's go and test our application's profile view to see if the profile is updating, or if we have any errors, we will go ahead and fix it. So let's load our application. So our application is loaded. Let's go ahead and test our application. So I'll go ahead and click login. So now I've successfully logged in. Let's go ahead and check the profile view. So our profile view is loading as expected, and I can see the profile view form over here, and I have the birth date. So let's check if I can instantiate or initialize the date picker. So date picker works. The jQuery UI has initialized this element over here or input over here. Next thing I want to check is the chosen library, if it's loading the components that I've created using chosen. So if I hit edit, I can see that the component has also been loaded. Now we will see some styling issues over here because we have not implemented the CSS. We will fix that soon. Here we will check if the address uh, form is working. We can see the errors, and also I can see the drop down over here with all the country names. That's the default country name that we had specified for the user when we created it, which we can fix once we select the new country. Let's go ahead and fix the styling before we test the functionality of this form. So let me go ahead and implement the CSS code in the user profile.component.css. So here I've added the CSS code. I'm going to save this file, go back to my form over here, and now you should see that all the CSS errors have been fixed. The styling has been implemented. Here you can see the role of the user. There is a customer, the name of the user, and the user can change their profile pic as well. So now let's go ahead and test by updating the user's profile info so that we make sure that we don't have any errors. Let's fill out this form. So here I've filled out the form, and I've added all the details of the user over here. I've filled out the form, filled out all the form controls, and now I'm going to submit the form, but you can see that I cannot submit the form because I have to accept the terms and condition. So I'm going to accept it, and now I'm going to submit the form. So as soon as I hit submit, I'm going to be asked for the password. My spinner image is not loading. We will fix that, but here I'm going to go ahead and enter the password for this tech234 user. So I'm going to click save, enter the password for this user, and click update profile. So as you can see that the update profile message we received on our toast service, it's being displayed on the top right corner over here, where we are being said that the profile was updated successfully, and we have the user's information updated on our uh, profile view as well. We can see that the information now appears on the form. If we refresh this page, we should still have this information. That's because it's already in our database and now it's cached in our browser. The new details have been cached in our browser. Here we can also display the middle name of the user. If you wish to, you can add this over here. All you need to do is write on the beginning of the form where we have the profile details dot first name and last name. You can also concatenate the middle name if you wish to. I have not added it over here, so therefore you don't see it even after updating the values. So the spinner image here, I need to change it to assets. So I'm going to, it's in my assets folders, so should be there. So I'm going to save that now, and I'm going to go ahead and try to update the details now once again. Let's enter the password, and here you can see the spinner image being shown in the background. As you can see that the is profile loaded was set to false, therefore we can see the spinner, and when I update the profile, the spinner disappears because is profile loaded was set to false, and we see the message. Now the next thing that we want to display is the user has updated their profile, we need to track the activity. We have already made an entry in our database for activity because the update profile method that we have in profile controller has all the logic. Here, if we go to the implementation, here we have already added the data to the activity table that the user is updating their information. So but we cannot see it right now in our Angular application. That's because we have not yet implemented the activity view. So if we go on activity, we don't see anything. We are going to fix that. Also, one more thing that we want to fix, which we will be fixing, is security in our application. So if I hit log out and I want to go to the my account page, you see that I can see the spinner, which means that the my account page is still loading, whereas I should be redirected to the login page because this page is protected and secure. I'm going to show you how to implement auth guard on your Angular components, but we will do that after we have implemented all the views. I'll show you how to protect the views from unauthorized access by implementing authentication guard on your Angular components. So for now, this should be it for this video tutorial. Please like and subscribe our channel. There's a lot more that we are going to add, many more features in this application, and you can get updated whenever we upload these videos only if you subscribe to our channel. So do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and if you have any questions, use the comment section. We will be happy to answer those questions. For the source code will be available in the DevOps repo. We will provide the link in the video description. Thank you once again.